now we continue to follow that breaking news. A Dearborn jury is deliberating still on whether a controversial pastor can hold a protest in the city. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm Stephen Clark.
And I'm Carolyn Clifford. Pastor Terry Jones was supposed to hold his protest an hour ago, and we are still waiting to see if that protest will ever happen.
Our Team 7 coverage begins tonight with Val Clark, who has been waiting for word outside the courthouse for the last, more than 2 hours now, Val.
Stephen and Carolyn, yes, the deliberations are going on, but I want to answer a question that I heard you and our legal analyst, Mr. Gleason, talking about, wondering whether Pastor Jones and his associate were planning to go to the mosque even if the jury rules that they are a danger, in danger of breaching the peace. They said they absolutely would, that was no question, that they intend to go there because it would be a violation of their First Amendment rights, even if the court feels that it is not. And there was a lot of talk about First Amendment rights today. I want to set it up for you first, though, because you're going to hear from Pastor as well as a prosecutor. Both of their backs are to us. The prosecutor was saying that they are creating, quote, a nightmare outside that mosque.
One book, I think they mentioned that before, this one. The First Amendment, as we have mentioned several times, is of course to us only valid if it allows us to say what other people do not like. Otherwise, we do not need the First Amendment.
What does that mean? The safety of the people that are in that area. The senior citizens, the children, the people worshiping. That is a recipe for disaster. That will cause murderous results.
And I want to make sure you heard that because it was a little difficult. The prosecutor said murderous results, and that's what he is fearing would happen if there's a clash at that mosque. I'm going to wrap it up because I see some activity behind me. We want to go inside and check and make sure that we don't have a verdict. Reporting live from Dearborn, I'm Val Clark. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Val. We're going to let you get back inside and get back to you in just a few moments.
Just a few miles away, hundreds of people are holding a rally. They call this a unity rally, calling for peace.
Our Team 7 coverage continues now with Action News reporter Cheryl Choden. She's live in front of the Ford Centennial Library. Cheryl, what's going on there?
Well, Carolyn, the weather has taken a turn, really a drastic turn. It's rainy and windy, so everybody, you can look behind me, they're putting everything away. But just a few minutes ago, really literally 5 or 10 minutes ago, people started to leave. Earlier, there were hundreds of people. Take a look. We have some video. Maybe 300 to 400 people did gather here in front of the library in unity to show love, to show respect for all different faiths. Together, we had speakers. People were holding signs and the American flag. This was, of course, in opposition to what they believe that Pastor Jones preaches, which they believe would be hate. Of course, they deplore that he burned the Quran, but they said if he would respect them, he would be welcome here as well. Again, we heard from speakers and citizens. Let's take a listen.
We stand here today not as Muslims, not as Christians, not as Jews, but as Americans. Here, today, we will send a message. This message is not directed against one man, but it's directed against the whole world, that we are united Americans. And we believe in democracy.
Well, there were people here, too, from all over, from city and from suburb as well. They came from far and near, and also clergy from different faiths. They want people to know that Dearborn is a loving city that welcomes everyone. And they're saying that what is happening with Pastor Jones, even though the burning of the Quran, they so deplore it, they say it has actually pulled people together in love and in unity, and that's what this was all about. Reporting live in Dearborn, I'm Cheryl Choden, Channel 7 Action News.
All right, Cheryl, thank you for that report. Now, during the hearing today, there were several tweets on Pastor Terry Jones' Twitter account. We wanted to read a couple of those for you. Again, we believe they came from him. The pastor says, nations around the world, every Friday in Islam, people are beheaded, stoned, and slaughtered after Friday prayers. Another says, pastors of Dearborn, God will say to you that he never knew you. And Dearborn area have been duped by Islam and Taqiyya. Take a little background here on Pastor Terry Jones. He believes Islam promotes violence and that Muslims want to impose Sharia law in this country. He wrote a book called Islam is of the Devil, the same phrase he was using on his church's property in Florida. And Jones is a former hotel manager, and he's worked as a missionary in Europe for some 30 years.
And joining us now is Channel 7 legal analyst Jerry Gleason to sort out today's developments. Thank you again for being here, Jerry. So let me ask you this. The judge offered Pastor Jones 4 other places to hold this protest, saying it was free for him to do it in other places. Is it against free speech to tell him he can't protest outside this center?
Well, there's no the First Amendment, free speech, free expression, free movement is not necessarily absolute when we're talking about free speech. There can be certain limitations on it. But here, I think the way it's kind of starting to play out, there is going to be potentially a challenge if the jury does rule against the pastor in this case.
On that subject, then, what laws or the ordinances that exist in a city that allows a public body to tell people where they can and cannot protest?
Well, and this is a body of law that's kind of evolved over time. It didn't evolve yesterday. The United States Supreme Court has ruled and allowed certain areas where we have content-neutral speech to have a freedom of expression, and you can go and get a permit, and the cities can permit certain activities.
And a permit is not a violation of a freedom of speech?
No, not necessarily. It can be if it's overbroad, but in this particular case, Dearborn has, since the ACLU sued them not too many years ago, kind of changed their ordinance to be in compliance with the law.
So it's by law that they determine when and why you have to have a permit to protest? You can't just show up anywhere and just hold one, right?
Well, in certain circumstances you can, because certain areas like sidewalks and public spaces are generally given a fair amount of protection because that's where expression takes place.
A lot of people thought it was just unfair that he steps off an airplane in Detroit and is immediately taken off to a courtroom. They say, well, obviously he hadn't done anything yet. How can you possibly take a guy to court and you hadn't done anything?
Right, and again, we're looking at what the county prosecutor did as opposed to the city ordinance, and the county filed the lawsuit, and Kim Worthy brought this, and I think it is going to be open to some First Amendment challenges because he isn't saying he's going to do anything wrong. I think what the prosecutor is saying is other people are going to do something based on what he says, and that's where we're getting into a more of a First Amendment challenge that he should have.
So why not take the other people who may do something and bring them into court?
Well, nobody has come forward to say, except for these anonymous emails that have been banned. I mean, nobody has been, I think, pointed out as being a particular person who's going to do anything.
Now, Jerry, when a prosecutor uses words like creating a nightmare outside that mosque, and this could result in murderous results. I mean, we've heard about the anti-Western sentiments against Americans in Afghanistan and things of that nature. When you use strong words like that, I mean, those are powerful words that you're using against Pastor Jones.
Right, and again, I think you have to be, as a prosecutor, be very careful when you're giving a closing argument that it be tailored to the evidence that you introduce. And certainly we have a peaceful rally going on in Dearborn at the same time, which would tend to undercut an argument that there's going to be violence either from one side or the other.
All right, Jerry Gleason, we appreciate your insights as always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, tonight, a quiet scene at the Dearborn Mosque where Pastor Terry Jones wanted to hold his own protest.
Action News reporter Mary Conway continues our coverage from the Islamic Center. And Mary, what are the people that you're with been saying about this today?
Well, you know, it's upsetting to everyone, and I want to show you, we do have about 100 people that are out here in front of the mosque. They're in the median area across the street, and they've now set up barricades. Some gentleman was heckling them at one point, and there were some pretty high tensions as people started to push and shove a bit. Police made the heckler leave, go down to the other area, and at this point, it's very, very peaceful. The imam from here, Hassan al-Kazwini, came by. He was in a vehicle. He used a bullhorn, and it said, please, 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 no violence. You're making Muslims look bad. And he said, this is an embarrassment. Do not fall for it. Do not get involved in any sort of violent demonstration. And the crowd here promised they would be nonviolent. People have been holding up the Quran and cheering, and they've been cheering as people go by, as different people that they know go by. But at this point, it's been very, very quiet, really. But again, no sign of Terry Jones. He's still tied up in court. Reporting live, I'm Mary Conway. Back to you.
All right, thanks for the update, Mary.
Well, we'd certainly like to hear your thoughts about Pastor Terry Jones' visit to Dearborn. You can leave your opinions, and you will not be alone. A whole bunch of people have been hitting us on the homepage of our website at WXYZ.com.